welcome to AVA's Season 5 premiere. And with us today, of course, I have my partner in crime, Blake Hotchkiss. Blake, hi.
Hey, how is everyone out there?
Awesome. It's exciting to get these going again. We are just honored to have Emily Levy and Emma Widmar. Emily is the co-founder of Mighty Well, and Emma is actually one of the Mighty Well ambassadors. So ladies, welcome to our show.
Thank you
Thank
so much
you.
for having us.
Well, we're
Yes,
excited to
welcome.
have you so much so. Emily, let's talk a little bit about Mighty Well. Tell people that don't know, the few folks out there that don't know Mighty Well, tell us a little bit about your company.
MightyWell is a medical technology company that I started out of my own need as a patient living with vascular access. We've designed a number of products, including a PICC protector, which is probably our best known product at this point. Other products include an infusion backpack, MightyWell masks. But one of the things I'm most proud of is the community that we've created for patients to be educated on how to live a productive life while living with long-term chronic illness, many of whom live with long-term vascular access.
Thank you. And Emma, Mighty Well ambassador. Tell us more
Yes.
about that and how did you become to be Ambassador Widmar?
It's been a long time coming. Because of social media, I connected with Mighty Well and saw what they were doing, kind of from an early standpoint. And from there, I became a friend of Emily's and started growing within her community, learning about the products she was developing, explaining my needs and concerns as a patient living with chronic illnesses. And from there, I think it was just a natural relationship. And I wanted to promote these products to share what Emily was doing with Mighty Well, not because of a discount code or a referral program, but because I really believed in what this company was doing for people like myself. So it all started out because of my own needs, but also being an advocate and seeing what these things could do for other people too.
Thank you so much. And Blake, I know we hear all the time about patients that go home and the lack of education they often get. And I think these two ladies in particular can talk volumes. But tell us a little bit about what you hear from the community that and we get a lot of email here at
Yeah,
AVA.
that's true. And I'll be honest with you, in my clinical background, I was working in quality assurance, and one of the big things is, the hospital to home kind of realm and the disconnect that patients, may or not feel, but what we as clinicians can see sometimes is, there's a clear plan while you're in the hospital. And then how do we connect people efficiently with resources? How do we get them timely follow-up after an acute hospital stay? I know that's a little different than when you're living with a chronic illness, but, it's something that happens every day. And that means, do they have the right type of vascular access for their care needs when they leave the acute care setting? Do they have the in-home treatments that they need, or therapies, or follow-up with an infusion center? And I know, when you're living with a chronic illness, some of that's, some of the therapies are sometimes discovered or self-driven. I think, like especially like Lyme disease and sort of things like that. You learn more about your community and people who have that illness when you're outside of the healthcare setting and how important that is. And I know just from that acute to post-acute care transition is something that's so missing or lacking. And I don't think, some people do it really well, and then there are many others that still struggle with that transition of care. And that's something like we work on in the Beyond Acute Care Special Interest Group, as far as finding people who are passionate in that space from a clinical standpoint, from a public standpoint, and how do we make a difference in our communities and our healthcare settings. So,
Perfect segue to our partnership with Mighty Well, between Ava and Mighty Well. You guys have created a patient-facing guide, if you will, about how to live with a PICC. And tell us a little bit more about it, Emily.
I am so grateful, and it honestly feels like a dream come true to have a partnership with AVA. Together, we developed the Ultimate Guide to PICCs, which came out of first my own pain points, but later speaking to so many members of our community who, as Blake was saying, were, had lines placed in a hospital setting. They were transitioning into home, and they felt like they were really left, up a creek alone. And we would get so many emails, direct messages on social media, with very targeted questions and problems. So we said, why not create a certified guide with AVA so that patients will know not only more about the organization, but that this is trusted information. And we also wanted to take more of a patient facing, you know, education with our community, because so many times as patients we're given, medical documents, and sometimes it can go a little bit over our head. Or if things are explained to us in a home care setting, it could be that we're just so overwhelmed or not feeling well that day. We felt like having a physical document to refer back to and share with the entire care team would be really critical.
I think
I
that's
think it's
really
brilliant.
important too, because, sometimes it's better for patients to understand best practice. And just again, from my clinical experience, what you see in the vascular access network, so to speak, outside of the healthcare setting, is sometimes there's different home infusion companies, different things like that. And sometimes the preferences of those companies drive a lot of the decisions that are made. We see that locally here in Maine where, this company really will only care for a PICC. They don't have the protocols to deal with midlines outside of the healthcare setting. How do we, for vascular access specialists, this may be not the appropriate device. So there is a lot of gaps. So I think when you're talking about a public-facing education document and giving them the tools, the best practice, they know what to look for. They know how to, they're better educated about their device. They're better equipped to know when maybe care is not provided the way it should be, because one of our biggest concerns is, infection risks, accessing the needleless access device without scrubbing the hub and basic things like that. And it becomes a knowledge point for patients to be able to protect themselves from negative things that shouldn't even be related to their care and infusion. So,
Oh,
Please.
I was just going to say our goal is to also make this a video series because so many patients have a difficult time either looking at screens or cognitively, reading can be quite hard. And the four ways we really thought about breaking this up is first, what is a PICC? Because I think so many people don't even know what that is when they're told that they need one. That was very much my experience. Second, focusing on PICC placement and ways to prepare and what happens and what to expect when they go home. Third would be PICC care, understanding dressing changes, reducing pain, things like you said, scrubbing the hub. I had no idea about any of that from the beginning. And finally, just how do you live with this on a daily basis? Because so many times for patients that we've heard from, this is not, a 2-week thing. It can be months and months, if not years.
Right. So, Emma, as I look at you, I can tell you have a port and
Yes.
you have a bio patch and your dressing looks pristine. And that's not the case all the time.
Right.
Woohoo, by the way, it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, thank you. All the credit to my sister-in-law. She is an RN. She is my home health care nurse. She also works in a hospital setting. Out of the kindness of her heart, she volunteers to access my port for me once a week, more than once a week, depending on my need. And, that's not something every patient has right at their fingertips. I'm just lucky that my brother married a nurse and that she is so passionate about patients and taking an investment in my healthcare. I live in Wisconsin for those tuning in, and well, it's a problem that people are facing across the country. There's a nursing shortage. And when I got my port placed, and I wanted to transition to home healthcare to get a better quality of life, because I was spending 3-4 days in an infusion center and then additional time in a hospital setting. I looked into home healthcare and there was no nurses available to access me and to take care of me. So being the advocate that I am and learning what I have from, Mighty Well and other resources, um, I was able to get things arranged with my sister-in-law. Again, not something all people have, that direct resource. Um, so thankfully, uh, I have the blessing in my life of having these resources, but things like, these guides, like the PICC guide, is really crucial for patients who, are maybe dealing with something that onsets, randomly, and they have no idea. For me, with a chronic illness, it's just something I've dealt with for years. So I'm used to the terminology, and I've established a foundation of friends with, whether that's a PICC line, a midline, a port, different things. I'm well educated, but most definitely that's not the case for most patients. So I truly think that having this guide is useful for patients, because as we all know in the medical field, things never go wrong when you're at the hospital and while you're in the you're in the care of, a nurse is in the room or something. Things go wrong at, on Christmas morning, and just at the times where you don't want it to go wrong. And we need
Right.
these resources available to us, and not just a resource from anyone, but something that's credible and that can be trusted, uh, because it's something so serious like your vascular access. Uh,
It's your life.
my dad,
You're
Yeah,
right.
your
yeah,
lifeline.
exactly. It is your lifeline. Um,
And
and
right.
it's like the most important thing we have. And I even saw that in a caregiver role as well. My father battled sepsis, I think about a year and a half ago, and it was during the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic. He was admitted in the hospital for about 2 weeks, had a PICC line placed, and then was sent home with the PICC line to receive care for about 2 months after. Um, and as most people know, when you have sepsis, things like confusion or lack of memory occur, and just not feeling well can lead to, not properly understanding what's going on. If you feel sick, you're not, you experience things like brain fog. And when my dad had his PICC line placed, he had no idea what was going on, other than this is what the doctor said was happening and this is what he was going to do. Thankfully, I, knew about what PICC lines were from listening to Emily's story and to connecting with other patient advocates. Um, but it was really a turn from this is happening to myself where I need vascular access, but also, watching my dad go through it as well. And, something like the PICC guide would have been helpful for me, whether it was trying to look in, how often does this dressing have to be changed? Um, you know, if you deaccess a port, you can get wet, but with a PICC line, you can't. And, those might
Right.
seem like simple things to us, but to people who are just, you know, stepping into this world, they have no idea. So I think something like this would be really beneficial for people who are, maybe experienced chronic illness, advocates, but also people who are, just experiencing something like this for the first time.
Without a doubt. I can't imagine. Blake and I, this is the world we live in, and so do you guys now too, just the
Mhm.
different side of the bed, so to speak. But I cannot imagine going home with a device, a vascular access device, and not being educated to the point where I know things that I need to do and understand to keep me safe. Like I
Right.
see these people on Facebook, we're all in these Facebook groups with different patients and different clinicians. And some of the questions these folks ask are just, they're scary because you don't know what you don't know. And
Yeah.
you don't want to go to the ER, especially during the pandemic, my goodness, because, you have oozing at the site. Is a little bit of
Right.
oozing okay? Or is it a lot of, and
Right.
fortunately, Emma, that you have such a great support system, whether it
Right.
be your sister-in-law, which, you know, good on you, nurse, but or Emily and her crew, or
Yeah.
whomever. And that's a whole part of keeping people safe, is having this team, your call of
Yeah.
friends.
Exactly. And I think that everyone deserves to have the support that I've had. Like, there's no reason that patients should ever have to feel alone, even if they feel like they're going through the worst or scariest thing going on. Um, and to not just feel like they're not alone, but to feel that they can be empowered with what's going on. Maybe just as simple as wearing a shirt that shows off their medical device, or being confident enough to reach out to someone to get the care that they need. I think it's like building preventative steps and supporting a person all the way through their care and through all the aspects of their life with that device.
True. And a couple of things I know, Emily, you've made your pick protectors pretty and different colors, and because body image is another thing that everyone needs to deal with. That sometimes you don't want to show off your device. Sometimes you may. But and I know you've given advice for people through your guide on how to travel, how, what to look out for. So tell everybody where they can get a hold of your ultimate guide to pick.
Thank you, Judy. Everyone can find our ultimate guide to PICCs on mightywell.com, and it'll be pushed out through different AVA channels. The videos will eventually live both on YouTube and our own website and platform. And exactly what you said, a lot of the tips that we are providing are things that a clinician's just never going to tell you. For example, how do you get on a plane? How do you navigate TSA? How do you go to the beach? All things that I learned through trial and error, or through connecting with other friends in the fight, like Emma, who may have been going through this longer than me, and other places like the Oli Foundation. I learned so much from about how to travel with a medical device. And with our Pick Perfect, we also developed an RX version called the Pick Perfect Pro, which is FDA registered. So we're super excited that we'll be able to offer our products both in a clinical setting as well as through e-commerce very soon. And we just want to make sure that if patients are purchasing something like our Pick Perfect, a guide is already included. And not only will this help
Oh,
them to
good
be
deal.
educated, on
Hmm.
the spot, but if they want to get more involved there, I would really love to see AVA have even more patient representation. I know there's a great start to that, but as we've been talking about, just going home is, I think, the hardest part. So if we foster more connections between patients, clinicians, and industry, patient outcomes can only get better.
I can't think
Definitely.
of a better way to end this episode with those words. That was wonderful.
Yeah.
Guys, we can't thank you enough for being on our show today. Blake, as always, you're my sidekick, but forever and never. But guys, thank you so much. Hope to have you back on again if you wouldn't
Yes.
Yeah,
mind.
would
Yeah.
be lovely.
That would
Thank you
be
so
such a
much.
blessing. Thank you so much to everyone at AVA for all that you've done for me, both as a patient and a young entrepreneur.
And thank you for giving patients like myself the opportunity to share our stories and to be heard, and to give feedback. It's really important to have that perspective, and it's great that Ava is willing to listen.
More than willing. You guys are part of us. You guys are us. We wouldn't be here if it weren't for our patients, obviously. Emily, you are a veteran when it comes to vascular access challenges. And I want you to tell our viewers a little bit about the challenge that you just went through. Ms.
Yeah.
Advocate herself.
Yes, this was just last week, and it took me quite a few days to physically and mentally recover. I flew to see a new doctor just outside of Milwaukee, and initially I thought this was going to be kind of an in and out trip. I ended up staying for 3 days to do some intensive IV therapy, and since I thought it was a quick trip, didn't bring any of my own access supplies. So I attempted to get peripherals. It took 3 different nurses, 5 different tries. I was going to get 4 different IV therapies. One of them is ozone therapy, which needs a little bit of a bigger needle. And it was about an hour and a half of them just trying, and oh, I think I got a good one. And I'm like, let me tell you, they roll, they look juicy, but they've been accessed for about 10 years now. So it was very frustrating as a patient, that balance between I really just need them to get me access so I can start to get the therapy. Whereas at the same time, seeing little things that I know aren't best practices, as well as just the emotional frustration patients go through trying to get access sometimes. So my experience has been with everything from peripherals to PICCs to implanted ports. And I just feel like it's my calling to help other patients not go through the trials and tribulations that I've gone through as a vascular access long-term patient.
Did they use any visualization tools when they were trying to get your line?
Oh my God, no.
Oh,
It was
that's
like, where
criminal.
is,
That was
you know,
terrible.
Oh no.
no, I've actually never been to a clinic that had any kind of guidance system, which I really wish was more available. Most of my care is in private clinics, so I understand it's not a hospital setting quite often, and there's costs involved. But the cost is often patients like me having their veins damaged or not even being able to get the access that they need. So long story short, I stayed a whole extra day at this doctor to not even be able to be accessed.
Jeez.
That's our next challenge. We have to
Yeah.
have no blind sticks. We have to.
Yeah.
It's going to be a ways coming, but that's what we need to push for. But I
It's the
thank you
future.
again so much for telling your story and stepping up. And again, want to thank you guys so much. You guys are wonderful. I can't wait to see what you bring out next.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You can see the entire AVA calendar on the AVA website at www.avainfo.org, which is also where you can join AVA or donate to the AVA Foundation. Don't miss Facebook Fridays, where we are live at noon Eastern Time each week. Toss us a question or give us a like. We're on all the social media platforms. You can follow the Association for Vascular Access on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and make sure you're subscribed to the I Save That podcast on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Pandora, or Google Play Music. Okay, folks, here comes the legal stuff. The topics discussed on the I Save That series are for informational purposes. You should personally seek the guidance of experienced clinicians before making any decision that affects your health or the health of your patients. Listeners are advised to do their own due diligence when it comes to making vascular access decisions. Our goal is to inform and educate the healthcare landscape while giving you a starting point for your discussions with more experienced clinicians and professional advisors. By listening to this program, you agree that the hosts, presenters, guests, sponsors, and the Association for Vascular Access are not responsible for the success or failure of your health, your career, or any decision you make related to any of the information presented. The I Save That series may contain segments of copyrighted music that was not specifically authorized to be used, but is protected by federal law and the Fair Use Doctrine, as cited in Section 107 of the U.S. Copyright Act. If you have specific concerns about this program or our position on fair use defense, please contact us at avaed@avainfo.org. No part of this program shall be reproduced, transmitted, or sold in whole or in part, or in any form without prior written consent from the Association for Vascular Access.